Monday, April 19th. We will have a roll call. City Clerk?
Barnacle,
Here.
Barrett,
Here.
Fisher,
Here.
Healy,
Here.
King,
Here.
McDonald,
Here.
Hosake.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. And we're all here now for closed session, which we will be going into now with the regular session starting at 6:30. I see one of our speakers for the proclamation is here, and we're not going to be starting our regular meeting, Ms. Garanteo, until 6:30. So if you want to come back then, you can do that if that's better for your schedule. So, okay, and for closed session, we're going into conference with legal counsel on existing litigation pursuant to paragraph 1 of subdivision B of California Government Code section 54956.9, Jose Alves and Lena Alves versus Judy Zura, City of Petaluma, and does 1 through 50, Sonoma County Superior Court case SCV 261477, and conference with legal counsel existing litigation pursuant to paragraph 1 of subdivision D of California Government Code section 54956.9, Frick versus City of Petaluma Workers' Compensation Appeals Board, case number DEU 13494787. So, City Clerk, is there any public comment on this item?
None have been received, Madam Mayor.
Okay, and moderator, is there anyone here who would like to speak on that item?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members of the public wishing to speak on the closed session items only, please raise your hand in Zoom and you'll be called on in turn. I see no hands being raised, Madam Mayor.
Okay, so with that, we'll close public comment and we will adjourn to closed session, and we will be back in this meeting at 6:30 or at the close of the closed session item, whichever's later. Thank you.
Oh, it doesn't.
Patrick, can you let me know if everybody is back yet?
We are live. I see some council members have arrived. I cannot tell if everyone is back yet. Just
I think we are. Yes, I see Vice Mayor is down there too. Okay, great. Okay, so we will go, we'll start our back into live session. So good evening. This is the City of Petaluma regular meeting of the City Council and the Petaluma Community Development Successor Agency, and we are back from closed session. And at this time, can I ask the clerk to do roll call?
Barnacle,
here.
Barrett,
Here.
Fisher,
Here.
Healy,
Here.
King,
Here.
McDonald,
Here.
and Posake.
Here.
Thank you.
Thank you. So right now we will do the Pledge of Allegiance, and you can either mute yourself or speak along with me, and we will start now. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now we will have a moment of silence. Thank you. Agenda changes and deletions to the current agenda. I don't believe we have any. Does anybody going to suggest any? Seeing no hands, the agenda stands as it has been posted. There is no report out of closed session. And now we're going to move to proclamations. We have 4 proclamations this evening. And we will start with a proclamation for Sexual Assault Awareness Month. Whereas Sexual Assault Awareness Month is intended to draw attention to the fact that sexual violence is widespread and has a profound and lasting impact on every community member of Sonoma County. And whereas Verity, Sonoma County's Rape Crisis Trauma and Healing Center, worked with over 1,000 survivors in Sonoma County in 2020. And whereas national research indicates that 1 in 5 women will be raped at some point in their lifetime, and nearly half of all women will experience some form of sexual violence, and 1 in 17 men will be raped at some point in their life, and 1 in 5 men will experience some form of sexual violence. And whereas young people are at greatest risk of sexual violence, and youth aged 12 to 17 are 2.5 times more likely to be raped, sexually assaulted, or sexually abused than their adult counterparts. And whereas disabled people, people of color, queer people, homeless people, transgender people, undocumented people, youth in foster care, and people of other marginalized identities are even more likely to be victimized by sexual violence. And whereas over 18,000 members of the military and over 80,000 people who are incarcerated experience sexual violence every year. And whereas with leadership, dedication, and encouragement, there's evidence that we can be successful in preventing sexual violence in the city of Petaluma through increased education, awareness, and community involvement. And whereas the city of Petaluma strongly supports the efforts of Verity and encourages every resident to actively engage in public and private efforts to end sexual violence, including conversations about what sexual violence is, how to prevent it, how to help survivors of all backgrounds connect with crucial counseling and other support services, and how every segment of our society can work together to better address sexual violence. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Teresa Barrett, Mayor of Petaluma, along with the members of the Petaluma City Council, do hereby proclaim April 2021 to be Sexual Assault Awareness Month. And we have with us accepting this proclamation and to say a few words, Gabriela Bugarin Teo. So Ms. Teo, would you like to speak?
Yes, thank you. It's Georgina.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's all right. It's okay, Georgina Bucarintelo. On behalf of Verity and our survivors, I accept this proclamation and thank you all of you to be aware of the big problem the sexual assault is, not just in Petaluma, but in the whole United States.
Okay, thank you very much and continue your good work. And I'm sorry that I gave you a different first name.
Well, it is actually kind of funny because it's my second name, but I don't use that one. So you guessed it right.
Okay. Thank you so much for being so gracious about it. Appreciate you coming tonight. So thank you. So with that, we will go on to our second proclamation, and this is for Earth Day. And if we're going to present this, to accept it will be Climate Action Commission youth members Raja Abastado and Catherine Hancock. And with that, we will the city of Petaluma Earth Week, April 18th to 24th, 2021. Whereas Earth Week is an annual event designed to educate and promote advocacy about the environment movement worldwide, April 18th to 24th, 2021 represents the 51st anniversary of the first Earth Day. And whereas, according to earthday.org, a nonprofit organization promoting and organizing Earth Week events, over 1 billion individuals and 75,000 partners organizations in over 190 countries participate annually in environmental protection and educational events. And whereas the Climate Action Commission was established by the City of Petaluma Ordinance number 2689 NCS, adopted August 5th, 2019, and effective September 5th, 2019. And whereas Ordinance 2689 NCS defines the Climate Action Commission's duties to include acting as a focal point for community education and understanding our impact on the environment, including carbon footprint and greenhouse gas emissions. And whereas the Climate Emergency Framework drafted by the Climate Action Commission and adopted by the City Council on January 11th, 2021, sets a goal for carbon neutrality by 2030. And whereas City of Petaluma council members, staff, and community members will need to use creativity, innovation, and education to achieve the carbon neutrality, equity, mitigation, and sequestration, adaptation, and outreach goals listed within the Climate Emergency Framework. And whereas the City of Petaluma's cityofpetaluma.org/climate ready webpage lists information about actions community members can take now to reduce climate pollution. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Teresa Barrett, Mayor of Petaluma, along with the members of the City Council, do hereby declare the week of April 18th through 24th, 2021 as Earth Week and encourage Petaluma community members to take action to reduce climate pollution. So, Raja and Kathleen, would you like to come forward and say something? Catherine, I'm sorry. Raja?
Well, I do have actually a short presentation if wanted, but it's like 3 minutes. Okay. My name is Raja. I'm a youth commissioner of the Petaluma Climate Action Commission. And first of all, I would like to thank the council member and the mayor of Petaluma for giving us the chance to speak here. I'm here to talk about Earth Day and what we can do for the Earth Day as individuals. So what is Earth Day? Earth Day was held on April 22nd, 1970, when San Francisco activist John McConnell and Wisconsin Senator Gaylord Nelson separately asked Americans to join in grassroots demonstrations dealing with dangerously serious issues concerning toxic drinking water, air pollution, and the effects of pesticides. An impressive 20 million Americans, 10% of the population, ventured outdoors and protested together. A lot of people ask a very important question, which is, what can I do as an individual? Let me tell you let me tell you that even as an individual, things you can do are almost limitless. Sometimes it can be being creative, and other times you can just go by the book with the things you can do. Some things you can do on Earth Day are support our pollinators by planting native plants and wildflowers in your garden. Native plants and wildflowers are not only beautiful, but also attract native beneficial insects that improve both pest control and pollination, meaning bigger flowers and a bigger harvest. Also, native plants and wildflowers bring pollinators as well as birds. You can also clean up plastic in your neighborhood and local park. A great way to connect with the earth is going through cleanups. Go on a walk with a trash bag and help clean up the plastic you find. Cleaning up plastic really helps us start to realize that plastic permeates every aspect of our lives. And don't forget to recycle the plastic you can. Plant a tree. We love our trees. They capture carbon and cool overheated places. They benefit agriculture, support pollinators, reduce the risk of disease transmission, and boost local economics. Planting one oak tree brings more insects and species than an entire yard of plants. Planting a tree in your backyard is a great project for Earth Day. Spend some time with nature. Take a hike in nature. Sit down in nature. Listen to the birds and the wildlife around you. Take in everything around you and look at the life around you. See how the trees are alive and how the birds and animals are alive, how the plants are alive and how the earth is alive. Give your garden some love and spend time in your garden tending to the garden's needs. Plant new plants and enrich the soil with compost if you have a compost. If you do not have a compost, then consider making your own compost. And if you do not have a garden, but you have the space for one, consider starting a garden. Look at the amount of trash you create each week and figure out what you can reduce the amount of trash you create. Things like, if you drink oat milk and you buy it from the store in plastic bottle or carton, try to make it at home instead. Or you can look at what snacks you eat that produce the most trash and stop getting it as much or finding an alternative that is not as wasteful.
Thank you very much. And Catherine, did you want to add anything?
Yes, I actually had a small addition to add.
Great.
Hello, my name is Katie Hancock, and I'm a youth commissioner on Petaluma's Climate Action Commission. Thank you to the City Council members for providing us the opportunity to accept Petaluma's Earth Week proclamation. As a youth member of society, the future of our planet is very important to me. I hope to protect this world not only for my own sake, but also with the hope that many generations to come will be able to call this planet their home the same as I have. I applaud the City Council for recognizing the importance of Earth Week and, more importantly, continuing to be leaders in environmental conservation and protection. Earth Week is especially important for me because it calls for the protection of my home. I'm excited for this proclamation and the possibilities of community involvement that have been created by it. Through this, we are able to spread the goals of the I'm Ready vision to a wider audience and encourage you all to take action. This is a very crucial time for the world in regards to climate change, which is why I am so grateful for the work that Petaluma is doing to protect our planet. As a member of the Climate Action Commission, I've been exposed to all of the wonderful things our community is doing to try and combat climate change, and I encourage you all to look for yourself at what we are doing. I am grateful for the opportunity to support the city with the work that has already begun, and I'm looking forward to continuing to explore new ways in which we can strongly engage youth in climate action and protection. Throughout history, it has been repeatedly proven that it is the youth of our society who make the most meaningful and impactful change. By engaging youth, we plant the seeds of hope and discovery that will feed and protect our Earth. While we recognize Earth Week and the significance surrounding it, let us also remember that every week is Earth Week, and we have a lot of work to do. Work that we must continue carrying out together. We must cooperate with each other, continue to strive for new ideas and innovations, and we must never forget that this will only be accomplished if we all work together as members of a single society. Thank you.
Thank you both very much for attending, and thank you for being part of our community commission on the climate, because as Catherine said, the youth are the ones who are going to live with this and make a big difference. So thank you both. So moving on, we have two more proclamations. The next proclamation is the Mayor's Challenge for Water Conservation. Whereas the city of Petaluma, the region of Sonoma County, and the state of California continue to explore ways to manage residential consumption of water and power, and to inspire its residents to care for our natural resources. And whereas cities can engage in efforts to inspire their own communities, as well as their neighboring cities, to become better environmental stewards. And whereas the 10th Annual National Mayor's Challenge for Water Conservation, presented by the Weiland Foundation, with support from the United States Environmental Protection Agency, WaterSense, and the city of Petaluma, is a nonprofit challenge to residents to encourage pollution reduction and smart water use. And whereas with the encouragement of their mayors, or residents may register their participation in their city's challenge online by making simple pledges to decrease their water use and to reduce pollution for the period of 1 year, thereby assisting their city to apply state and federal water conservation strategies and to target mandated reductions. And whereas from April 1st to the 30th, 2021, the city of Petaluma wishes to inspire its residents and its neighboring communities to take the Weiland's Mayor's Challenge for Water Conservation by making a series of online pledges at mywaterpledge.com to reduce their impact on the environment and to see immediate savings in their water, trash, and electric bills. Residents will further be provided with tools to take specific measurable actions throughout the year to improve the sustainable use of natural resources. And whereas the city of Petaluma agrees and supports the Weiland Mayor's Challenge for Water Conservation, and the program is to be implemented from April 1st through 30th, 2021, through a series of communication and outreach strategies, whether new or existing, to encourage Petaluma residents to take the conservation challenge. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Teresa Barrett, Mayor of Petaluma, along with members of the City Council, do hereby proclaim the City of Petaluma as participants in the Mayor's Challenge for Water Conservation. The Petaluma City Council urges the citizens of Petaluma, California to do their part to conserve water and energy and make a pledge to reduce water consumption at mywaterpledge.com. And I am going to turn this over to Chelsea Thompson to talk about this effort.
Yeah, thank you. And just so you know, the last time I checked, our current standing in the national challenge is number 6 out of the top 10. So we're doing pretty good. This year, the Mayor's Challenge was particularly important for us to participate in as we face a second year of dry weather in California. Just a few weeks ago, on March 22nd, the State Water Resources Control Board reported that 95% of California is experiencing moderate to severe drought. As a result of the dry weather, groundwater and reservoir levels are significantly below average, and all California water users are being called upon to prepare for drought impacts. The city gets most of its drinking water from the Sonoma County Water Agency, or Sonoma Water. Sonoma Water has 2 water storage reservoirs, Lake Mendocino and Lake Sonoma, both of which have severely low storage levels as we head into the summer months. To prepare for drought impacts, the City of Petaluma will be asking City Council to implement a 20% voluntary reduction of citywide water use at the May 3rd City Council meeting. The city recognizes that many water customers have already taken long-term actions to conserve water, such as changing out plumbing fixtures and converting high water demand landscapes to become more drought tolerant. Many customers have already taken advantage of the city's water conservation incentive programs to jumpstart water conservation practices at their homes. We want to encourage everyone to be mindful of daily water use. There are simple practices we can all take now as we aim to reduce our water use by 20%, such as water landscapes between 8 p.m. and 6 a.m. to reduce evaporation, and fix leaks and breaks in plumbing and irrigation systems to reduce water loss. We know it gets harder to reduce water demand when you've already taken permanent steps to reduce overall water use, but we know that the residents can go even farther when called upon. We saw this in the last drought when our city easily and consistently exceeded the mandated reduction target of 16%. We will meet our demand reduction goals again during this drought, and by starting now, we will be better prepared for a mandated reduction in the coming months. Thank you.
Thank you. And I especially want to thank Chelsea for all the work she's done in getting the word out on this. And I also, I can update you, Chelsea, and everybody in Petaluma. I just got a message from the Wyland Foundation that Petaluma is actually in 4th place nationally. So let's, and I know that we do a lot here. As Chelsea pointed out, everybody has always been very water wise and careful, but we are really in unprecedented water shortage times. So this is kind of a fun thing, and it will bring a hybrid car to a nonprofit group here in town if we win, and that'll be fun too. We can figure out which one gets it. But the real winners are going to be us in the future, because we really have no choice but to conserve water. And so I just want to thank everybody who has already participated and urge everyone who hasn't to please join in. So thanks again. So now we're on our last proclamation, and that is for Arbor Day. And we have our Tree Advisory Committee Chair, John Shribs, who will be here to say a few words. And Arbor Day is April 30th, 2021. And whereas in 1872, J. Sterling Morton proposed to the Nebraska Board of Agriculture that a special day be set aside for the planting of trees, and whereas this holiday, called Arbor Day, was first observed with the planting of more than 1 million trees in Nebraska, and Arbor Day is now observed throughout the nation and the world. And whereas trees reduce the erosion of our precious topsoil by wind and water, cut heating and cooling costs, moderate the temperature, clean the air, produce oxygen, and provide habitat for wildlife. And whereas trees are a renewable resource, giving us paper, wood for our homes, and countless other wood products. And whereas trees in our city increase property values, enhance the economic vitality of business areas, and beautify our community, and whereas they are wherever they are planted, are a source of joy and spiritual renewal. And whereas the city of Petaluma has been recognized as a Tree City USA by the National Arbor Day Foundation and desires to continue its tree planting practices. Now therefore be it resolved that I, Teresa Barrett, Mayor of Petaluma, along with members of the Petaluma City Council, do hereby proclaim April 30th, 2021 as Arbor Day in the city of Petaluma and urge all residents to support efforts to protect our trees and woodlands and to plant trees to promote the well-being of this and future generations. So, Mr. Shribs.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And thank you to the City Council for promoting trees and recognizing trees as being a huge natural resource for our town and for the world. Trees, at the moment, we have a tree technical manual that is in staff reviews. That's coming along nicely. We also have a new initiative in town, a tree initiative, and a new volunteer nonprofit group of Relief Petaluma that has formed and has already started to plant some trees here in Petaluma with a focus on native trees. And I want to thank the students for what they said about the importance of native trees that we want to grow for, especially for biodiversity. So trees are extremely important, and we'll be working toward getting more trees here in Petaluma, but also recognize that we do have this water shortage that's coming at us with potential drought, and we need to be aware of it and plan for this with our trees. And native trees do some of the best jobs of providing canopy with some stress from water. And so we want to work with the water and the drought issues in the future, as well as fire safety. It turns out we are currently protected by a green belt around us that was actually planned, having our urban boundary, having that green belt, which is actually a fire protection zone. And we need to work with that fire protection zone and have the right plants for both biodiversity and for fire protection together in this zoning. So I'll be looking forward to working with you on that in the near future. We will be planting a tree here on Arbor Day, April 30th, in memorial to Matt Corey, who was our prior chairman of our tree committee for at least 6 years, all the time that I've been on the tree committee. So we want to thank him for all his work and dedicate the tree to him and the day to him. And that's all we're going to do because of COVID and other possible finding locations with the water restrictions now are starting to happen. We need to be very careful where we plan. But we do have plans coming in the future that maybe in the fall, just before the rains or right when the rains start up again, to plant a large selection of trees in our city parks. And we're going to be working with Petaluma Relief to do this. So thank you for your time and thank you for your recognition, how trees being a very natural resource that is so important and unrecognized by most. But thank you for your recognition.
Thank you very much, John, and thanks for the work you're doing for the city of Petaluma and the future. That's right. So now we are finished with our proclamations and we're moving on to general public comment. And I will ask the city clerk if she's received any letters for general public comment.
We've received 2, Madam Mayor.
And are they on the website?
They are.
Okay, thank you. And I will turn this over to our moderator to open general public comment.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. At this time, I'm going to be starting a 30-second timer. Members of the public wishing to speak in general public comments, please raise your hand and in Zoom, and we will let the members of the public that have raised their hand by the time of that timer speak, and we'll divide the time accordingly. So with that, during general public comment, the public is invited to make comments on items of public interest that are within the City Council's subject matter jurisdiction, and they are not listed on the current agenda. Public comments are limited to up to 3 minutes per person. Depending on the number of persons wishing to address the council, time will be allocated in equal shares totaling no more than 20 minutes, subject to the council's discretion. So with that, it looks like we have 3 hands raised, so we'll reset that timer for 3 minutes. And while I'm doing that, just a few housekeeping items. Attendees will be muted when their time expires or when their comments have concluded, whichever comes first. Speakers are encouraged to be respectful. Threats of violence and obscenity are grounds for removal from the meeting. And if you are unable to speak during the time allotted, you may send your comments to the city clerk at cityofpetaluma.org. So our first speaker is John Hanania, followed by Joe Zepp. So there we go. So John, you may unmute yourself and begin your comments.
Good evening. Can you guys hear me?
We can.
Great. Well, what I really wanted to talk about this meeting is water. But something took place last Friday morning that I'd like to bring it to the community's attention, because I don't want to say I want to talk to you guys, because I personally don't think you guys care or give a damn about what takes place in the community. I've been telling you about what's taking place with the police department, and it seems like it's fallen in deaf ear. And I've been telling you, as your city manager is not doing her job, and it's fallen in deaf ear. As you know, I'm out and about taking pictures and recording certain things. Last Friday, about a little after 9 o'clock in the morning, in front of the IHOP in North McDowell, a young man, soaking wet, probably is not 120 pounds, maybe 5'7" at the most, works for DoorDash, picking up some meal to deliver. As he exits the restaurant, he's greeted by Petaluma's finest. Not one, not two, not three, not four, but 5. This guy's doing nothing wrong. This is what I call bogus stop. I've spoke to Savano and Miller about it, okay? He knew his rights, but yet they tried very hard to search his car. They couldn't, because he knew his rights. And I was right there watching the whole thing unfold, okay? They patted him down. They surrounded him like if he was criminal. They patted him. They gave him sobriety test, okay? They wanted to search his car so bad. There was 2 officers peeking from the outside of the car, trying to find anything for probable cause. These stops, they happen every single day. They've been happening for generation, for over 30 years, and nothing is being done about it. In the 30 years that I've been here and I've been dealing with the city, I've seen so many managers come and go. The current one that you call a city manager is by far the worst. I don't know what rock did you find her under. At what point you guys gonna do your job? I'm disappointed with the newcomers who the platform was honesty and integrity, and one of them in his campaign that he wants to hold city leaders accountable. Well, go ahead, do what you promise. Don't be like animals who only after the female to get what they want, and after they get it, forget it.
Next speaker is Joe Zepp, followed by Diane Kenny. So Joe, you may unmute yourself and begin your comments.
Good evening, everyone. I would like to follow up on the climate change presentation for tonight. I think it's very interesting and important to realize Sonoma County and the area around Sonoma County does not have unlimited resources to support the population that we are being forced to increase within our city limits. The state previously had set goals to increase the housing in the Bay Area by 187,990 new units between 2015 and 2023. The state has now increased the goal to 441,176 new homes between 2023 and 2031. In Southern California, primarily Newport Beach, but also in other cities as well, they have fought against the state mandate for increasing the housing in their locations based on the value of the properties and the local resources. It also seems like Marin County does not increase their housing as much as Sonoma County. But my question is to the city of Petaluma and the city council, what are you doing to ensure that the city and the county can support the population growth and live within the means of our local and regional resources? Our water is so important. The city council, I'm sure, knows it. Currently, the city is getting water from the Sonoma County Regional Water Authority, along with our local wells. The City Council has mentioned multiple times that the state is requiring the city to increase the housing within the city limits, and they have discussed that we must increase our density of the housing within the city limits. My question to follow that up is, what is the number of new houses being required within the city limits over the next 8 years? Can you answer the question? What is that number? It seems like I can't find it when I look on the city websites. I can't find it in the state websites. It is something that is discussed and held over our heads within the city, that we must comply with the state. But that number, based on formulas, has never been given out to the public, and it really needs to be given. I think that's something important that everybody in the city needs to know and realize what the state is requiring. I think that's a number that everybody needs to realize is going to impact our roads, our infrastructures, our resources. You look at our lakes, and Marin County just mentioned that they're low on water because of their ponds. And you look at Sonoma County, we're low on water coming off of the Russian River.
I'm sorry, I had to mute you there, Joe. Your time had expired. Diane Kenny, you had your hand up, but you lowered it. If you'd like to speak, please raise your hand right now. Otherwise, we're going to close public comment. And it doesn't look like she's raising her hand. There is one hand up, but was not up when we ended our timer earlier. So if you have comments, just a reminder, please send your comments to the city clerk at cityclerk@cityofpetaluma.org. And thank you to everyone who spoke tonight.
Okay, thank you, Patrick. Thank you. And with that, we will close public comment, and I will take it to council comment. And I will start with Council Member McDonald.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I appreciate a chance to go first. The main committee or commission occupying my time these days is our continuum of care, the county's HUD-required system of care regarding homelessness. And it's been busy. There's been weekly meetings on the activities of these continuum of care. But highlighting that is the county has recently released their report, their consulting report from KPMG Consultants regarding homelessness. And they reached out to the city managers and now to elected officials for how to improve coordination and collaboration. And that's the subject of tomorrow's Board of Supervisors meeting, item 36, I believe it is, well down in the lineup. And some of the highlights for me were that this report does not provide a strategic plan, nor really provide a good path to a strategic plan, but it will start a strategic plan. And that's so important that we align our resources so that we are effective in addressing this growing problem. Hopefully the supervisors will make that specific direction at their meeting tomorrow. They also did not address the specific concerns of the elected officials of our cities, nor the Continuum of Care Board, but I'm hoping that they will direct that a joint meeting be held, an ad hoc of supervisors, Continuum of Care officials, and of city ad hoc representatives. And they recognize the stress relationships, and they know that we have to do better on a regional approach. And the good news is there is a big cry for a better address of the homelessness situation, and the county is starting to heed it. Also, our PBAC, the Petaluma Bicycle Advisory Commission, met during this window, and the highlights are some of the things we see on our agenda here at Council, which is the Lynch Creek trail improvements, the surfacing improvements, and the work at Prince Park as well. And in that discussion, they talked about how good the bids are right now, and that the contracts to fix things are coming in under budget, and how to extend that money to do even more good for the community. And one of the key things was extending the Lynch Creek Trail up to Holly Lane which would get you to McKinley School and the swim center on a street that isn't as busy as Payran. So that would be a huge step forward if we can get the Lynch Creek Trail up to there. And also, so we should note that SMART is meeting Wednesday and voting on just how much and how quickly to build out the SMART path, the path for active transportation. And we just have to get that piece from Water Street to Lakeville into this funding. It's only 500 feet long, but if we do, they do, Water Street to Lakeville, we'll finish a direct cycling route from the Corona station right in all the way into downtown. So that would be huge. I'm looking forward to that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Councilmember Healy.
Thank you for that. I'm going to start by responding to the public commenter who was asking about what our housing needs requirement will be for the next cycle. The RENA process, the Regional Housing Needs Allocation process, works slowly and methodically. We have not received our draft numbers yet from ABAG, and we anticipate, I don't know the date off the top of my head, but I believe that's soon. And what follows after that is a essentially one year appeal process. The Los Angeles region is a year ahead of us in their RENA cycle. And I'm told that jurisdictions down there that have appealed their draft RENA allocations have had a 0% success rate on appeals. So I think when we get our draft RENA numbers, that's probably what it's going to look like. In terms of liaison assignments, the WAC hasn't met, but it's going to meet the morning of our next meeting. There's a lot of email chatter going on at this point about what the mandatory cutbacks are going to look like and how that's going to work. We'll have more to report on at the next meeting, but that's looking increasingly serious, to no one's surprise. It will require mandatory, in addition to voluntary cutbacks over the summer. And then the Public Safety Policy Committee of the League of Cities did meet last week. It's always a bit of an out-of-body experience for me to be on the left flank of a committee or a commission or a board, but the Public Safety Policy Committee gives me that opportunity. We were taking recommendations to the league board on a number of league policies and a number of bills. There's only one that I want to bring to the council's attention because it may be one that the council wishes to send off a letter of our own on, and that was regarding AB 48, which would prohibit the use of kinetic energy projectiles or chemical agents unless used to defend against a threat to life or serious bodily injury to any individual. So that's rubber bullets, pepper spray, tear gas, and things of that nature. It would prohibit them from being used solely for violation of a curfew, a verbal threat, or things of that nature. The committee voted to recommend to the league an opposed position on that bill, and I would invite the council to weigh in on whether we want to send a letter in support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And Councilmember King.
Thank you, Mayor Barrett. Neither Sonoma Clean Power nor the Transit Advisory Committee met since our last meeting, so I have no council report this evening.
Well, lucky you. So now we will go to Vice Mayor Barnacle.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I had a meeting this morning with the North Bay Water Reuse Program. The most important item on the agenda for you all to stay tapped in on is there's going to be a substantial effort over the next few months to determine what the future of that body is and what it focuses on if it stays together. The group allocated joint funding of additional $50,000 today to basically go through a process of figuring out what the rescoping of the group will be. In particular, looking at the new funding that's coming, new programs that could be created, and how the group might realign its priorities and activities to capture that funding. So there was that. On Saturday, I participated in the Petaluma Art Center and 350 Petaluma's event for Earth Day. It was a nice event. Loved all the different types of art that were created there, from spoken word to posters and drum circles, all of it. It was even nice to hear all the pianos in the background the whole time. Love the parklet out in front of Mi Pueblo. It's big, it's bold, but I love it. Just want to comment on the water stuff. It's something that's I've been getting a lot of messages about from different constituents. Some people in town saying that they don't want to conserve water. We've been conserving water for years, and you keep growing. Dairymen from out of town wondering if they're going to be able to get water from us. And I'm excited to see in the scope of work for our consultant tonight on the consent calendar, different sorts of programs and assistance programs. But I really think we need to add "Kill Your Lawn" campaign to the mayor's pledge or something, and give people kudos or $500 gift certificates to people who just let their lawn go brown over the next month or so. So that's my report out.
Thank you. And Councilmember Fisher.
Well, from a climate's perspective, I wouldn't recommend the tilling, but certainly the mulching and killing the lawn. So in terms of my liaison assignments, I did have a planning commission meeting last week, and we were presented by staff the all building electric code recommendations that will be coming before us, I believe, at our next meeting. There was no action item. It was just for our information. And then also the Sonoma County Transportation Authority and the Regional Climate Protection Agency did meet last week as well. There's really no significant action items to report to this body. I'm also a part of the ad hoc committee on the future of transit. And again, that's just to know that that's moving forward to try to make consistent our 3 transit agencies in Sonoma County, so that make it easier for the rider and the user. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councilmember Posake.
Sorry, got to get unmuted. We had a Climate Action Commission meeting since the last meeting. We had an interesting speaker from the Portland Climate Group. His name was Donnie Oliveira, and he spoke on community engagement. And I think he made some comments that will be helpful to us going forward. Main speakers at the next May meeting will be the Ramey Group, our general plan consultants, and we also discussed the all electric building code and the city's climate ready initiative. And we finally appointed an education and outreach ad hoc committee to lead us further in that direction. At the CHIPA meeting last week, we were divided into groups to help along a couple members of that group who will be on our ad hoc Citizens Advisory Committee on Race and Policing. So we were asked to consider 2 questions. What does a safe space look like, and how can we stretch to engage through discomfort? And I think the quickest general answers that we came to in those regards was that a safe space is where you're listened to and heard, and that if you want to stretch, you need to make yourself vulnerable so others will also make themselves vulnerable. Finally, there was a youth commission meeting where we heard from tobacco-free Sonoma County more about the tobacco retail license because they would like the youth commission to be involved in bringing that forward again as well. That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I had an Air District meeting, which interestingly, since 2 of the other council members were discussing electrification. This meeting this morning was about, basically discussing the anticipation of building electrification being generalized throughout the 9 Bay Area counties. And we had a presentation on water heaters and fan furnaces, so room heaters and water heaters, and their availability and their accessibility financially. What was very interesting was that the discussion really indicated that those are the two appliances, basically, that produce the most NOx and greenhouse gases from buildings, residential buildings, and that they are the ones that making those changes, make changes that have a huge effect. The problem is that with room fans, fan furnaces, they're very expensive to put in. So the equity issue of how we make these programs that promote these available to low income and medium income people is really critically important going forward. So these are air district rules that govern both area heat systems and water heating systems that will be looked at, changed, brought up to electrification standards, and will be voted on at the air district probably this September. And then the timeline for how that will be implemented is a huge part of the discussion. One of the financing aspects that were discussed was a shout out to Sonoma County's Skype program as not only an excellent model, but also scalable. And it was recommended that the Air District and other agencies look into seeing if Sonoma County were interested in administering such a program on a regional basis. Rather than reinventing the wheel county by county. So I thought that was a real shout out to Sonoma County, and we're certainly going to be passing that information on to the county and the Skype program. The discussion also talked about what cities and counties can do in terms of permit streamlining, because almost nobody replaces their hot water heater or their heating system unless they turned it on and it stopped working. And usually when that happens, you don't have the time to go through a permitting process that may take weeks or in cases months. And so the idea here is to set up some kind of emergency streamline that would allow people to make the change from gas to electric in an almost right now kind of rate of time, because when you need heat or hot water, you need it today, and not next week or something. So that is something that hopefully our Climate Action Commission could be looking at, looking at that, and also our Planning Commission. So those are really things that we need to do as we're evolving down the same path. So that was basically it. I also attended the Earth Day celebration at the Petaluma Arts Center, which was a really nice family kind of event. And I really want to do a little shout out to Mary Dooley, a local architect here in town, who read her poem for Earth Day that was about our water treatment plant here in Petaluma. And I really hope I can reach out to her, and maybe she'll let us put it on our city website. It was a really good poem. So thank you, Mary, and thank you for the people who put that on. So with that, I will go to our city manager. Oh, before we go to the city manager, I'd just like to say that I'm in favor of supporting a letter on of support for AB 48 that Councilmember Healy brought up. And if that's not something of general interest, maybe the two of us could draft a letter of support on that issue. But if everybody else would like to do it, perhaps we can do that. So our city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. And I want to let you know that planning is already exploring the streamlining for water heaters. So we're on that. Just a reminder to the community that tomorrow night we have our first meeting at 6:30 of our ad hoc community advisory committee on race relations in our community. And community members can participate via Zoom or watch the live stream on our website. And you can find those links by clicking the news item either on our homepage or go to our meetings page. So cityofpetaluma.org/meetings. And you can now receive city news and updates via text message on your mobile phone. And those instructions, both in English and in Spanish, are on our homepage on the website. So I'd encourage folks, if you spend more time on your cell phone than your email and you want to get important updates from the city, to please sign up. And that would be it for tonight. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay, so now we're going to approval of minutes. And we received minutes for March 23rd, May 4th, June 15th, July 6th of 2020, and March 8th, March 15th, and April 5th of 2021. Unless I see some interest in corrections, we will accept them as submitted and we will deem them approved. Okay, so there we are. Moving on to approval of proposed agendas. We have agendas for a city council workshop on April 26th and the regular meeting for May 3rd. Vice Mayor Barnacle?
Yes, I'd like to suggest that the bond park item be taken before the for the Recreation, Music and Parks Commission before it comes back. We've heard the feedback from the surveys, but we haven't actually had a chance to have a hearing on the proposed design elements and things like that. And I think that the public should have a chance to weigh in on the proposed design before we put it on the consent calendar and away it goes.
Okay, thank you. Does staff want to respond to that? Not hearing any.
I am trying to see if Drew is here.
Okay, let me go on to other other comments,
Please.
and we'll get back to that. Okay, Councilmember Fisher, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was actually hoping Councilmember Barnacle would move the item and I would second it, but I'll wait to hear from staff.
Okay. Councilmember McDonald and then Councilmember Healy.
Thank you very much. I know there's always reasoning in staff's agendizing of items and things, but I do want to support the concept that our vice mayor made in that we want our committees and commissions to be empowered. This is one of those steps we can take to show them that we mean it, that we mean that they have a role. Pending timeline issues or whatever from staff, I do like this idea.
Okay, and Councilmember Healy. Councilmember Healy.
Thank you. So if the council wants to put a letter or post or supporting AB 48 on an agenda, it could either be for giving the direction to the mayor to sign it. I don't think this needs to be a 7-signature letter, but this would be the point to do that. And I have no problem with moving Bond Park to the Planning Commission first, or to the Park and Rec Commission first, if it's not time sensitive. Thank you.
Okay, so then let's save our city manager from having to scurry around looking for staff and just ask that be taken off the May 3rd agenda. I think I'm hearing 4 people were in favor of that. Okay, so I think Councilmember Fisher was going to make a motion.
Yes, so I would move our, move approval of our next agenda with that item taken off. Thank you.
2 agendas, the 26th and the 3rd.
Yes, for both our workshop and their next meeting on May 3rd.
Okay, and a second from
Kevin would second that.
Councilmember McDonald. Okay, so can we have a roll call vote?
Barnacle,
Yes.
Barrett,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Healy,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
and Posake.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. That is unanimous, and we will move on to the consent calendar. And I did not get any requests for removal of any item from the consent calendar. I see Councilmember Healy has his hand up.
Thank you. I don't need to remove anything, but I had a question on 3D and the utility rate study. It's related to that. We have been told that the CPI increase from July of last year that's been deferred will be canceled, and I'm just wondering if that needs to be agendized for council action, or if that can happen just by direction to staff, because we would need to see that on an agenda pretty soon if that's going to happen. And with that, pending a response from staff on that, I'll move the consent calendar.
Okay. Councilmember King.
I was going to second
Thank
that
you.
motion. Thank you.
Okay, so is there a comment from staff about whether the CPI will be extended or ended? And what if we need to agendize that?
I will need to check. Sorry, Peggy,
I'm looking, I don't know who's talking right now, but
Yeah.
I'm looking at a hand up from Brian Cochran.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes, I believe it does need to be agendized. We can bring that back in June. The prior actions of the council, I believe, were both resolutions to delay those increases. So we would want to follow up with another resolution to go ahead and make that modification on a more permanent basis. So I think that would be the right thing to do.
Thank you very much. And I don't know who else was talking, but do you want to speak now?
I believe that was Director of Public Works and Utilities, Jason. He was trying to chime in.
yeah, I think Brian covered it. Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
And Madam Mayor and Council, I concur with what the Assistant City Manager has said.
Okay, so thank you all. So we have a motion and a second, and we will have a roll call vote for the, oh no, wait a minute. We have to do public comment on the consent calendar. City Clerk, did you receive anything on any of the consent calendar items?
We did not receive any emails on consent.
Thank you. And moderator, do you want to check and see if there's anybody in attendance who would like to speak with comment?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members of the public wishing to speak on the consent calendar items, please raise your hand in Zoom and you'll be called on in turn. We currently have one hand raised, and that is Ben Peters. So Ben, you may unmute yourself and begin your comments. You there, Ben?
All right, good evening, everyone. Ben Peters here. This comment is about the airport. The project at the airport that was using capital funds. We have this project, which is also using capital funds, and highlights the energy savings benefits of these projects. And so it's common best practice to actually consolidate cost-effective LED projects with other measures as part of a larger energy project that is financed, so that we don't need to do these onesie-twosie projects and we can actually have a significant climate benefit. Now, I can't wait for the report that talks about how the $150,000 engineering study for all city facilities is going to weigh in on that, but the airport, if the RFP for solar projects included LED lighting, we would already have these projects hopefully well scoped in advance. But again, we're doing them one off, two off, which is okay. It's just not the best way to spend our scarce resources. I'd also like to comment, it was surprising to note that these hangars are not individually metered, which is very surprising and should be reconsidered. As part of this lighting project, why not do sub-metering and do a green lease with the tenants where they can pay for the electricity that we're consuming? So I'm sure these leases are very sweetheart deals. Now, the city, according to the report, is paying for unpermitted work. And that might be a good question to ask city staff. Has any of the tenants that did unpermitted work, are they going to be charged for this work that we're now doing for them? It would seem that if the city is spending all this money, perhaps we would recoup that through improvements to the lease terms. Or is this another sweetheart deal just like the fairgrounds? So there's a couple big questions in this airport electrical project. I really think we could do a better job with our energy systems in this city. Thanks.
Thank you, Ben. Madam Mayor, that is the last hand I see raised, so I'm going to turn it back to you.
Thank you very much. And with that, we'll close public comment and we will go ahead with the roll call vote. City Clerk?
Yes. Barnacle,
Yes.
Barrett,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Healy,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
and Posake.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. And now we're on to new business and this.
Madam Mayor, before we go there, if I could.
Yes.
So I had a follow-up question on the letter on SB 556. How technically are we going to sign that up? What are the arrangements to be made?
Madam Mayor, if I could address that. We have DocuSign. I believe that we can put that into our DocuSign system and email it to each of the council members and get the 7 signatures and then send it out to the author and the league.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Danley, you're okay with that?
Eric, you're okay.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Patrick, and the timing for that, doing it that way?
We're trying to get it before a number of committee hearings on that. I don't remember when the next one was. I believe there was one earlier this week or late last week on that, so we missed that. I think there's some time before the next one.
Because the reason I say that and the reason Council Member Healy's asking the question is that under the Brown Act, a document can be a meeting, and so that's why we've signed them at public meetings in the past when we have more than a quorum signing.
But they just took action to adopt it.
So, just right now, huh? So, okay. And it's final that way. So, well, I guess what we would maintain is that's an implementation step of an action they took already before the public. So I think that's our best characterization of that in these virtual times of these meetings. and we'll proceed and be and I think that's probably the best way. So thanks for answering that, and thanks, Councilmember Healy.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And we're going on to new business, and I see that Councilmember King has his hand up, so I'll let him speak at this time.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to need to recuse from this item. One of the affected hotels is I call it occasional law firm client of mine, so I need to not participate.
Okay,
So
thank you.
I will be leaving.
Thank you, and our city manager will get in touch with you when you can come back. So with that, our new business is the adoption of an urgency ordinance protecting hospitality worker job security by establishing a right of recall application applicable to hotels with 50 or more guest rooms. And this is our city attorney will be leading this discussion.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and Council. It's going to be my pleasure to address this item that we've prepared for the council's consideration, which it has been seeking to have on the agenda for some time. And I will begin by noting that when I was working very hard and to get this item out for late distribution, I was not anticipating that the next day the governor would be signing a state law recall law, but he did, and that law is SB 93. What I'd like to do in presenting this item, unless the council wishes me to do it differently, which I'll be happy to do, is to talk about both pieces of legislation, what the council, what the governor has signed and is in effect as a state urgency enactment, and what's been presented for you tonight, so that you can see what are the differences and similarities of these two recall pieces of legislation, which create for employees, and in this case, employees of the hospitality industry as defined in the laws, and a right to be able to be offered positions that are recreated for which they're qualified, having been laid off previously from that employer for non-disciplinary reasons within the period covered by the law. I'll say that we prepared our ordinance based on a model that was provided to us by the North Bay Labor Council. Been in touch with them a little bit to talk about the relationship between that ordinance and SB 93, and I understand they have a representative that's attending the meeting tonight to address any questions related to their position on the law. So the two pieces of legislation are very similar. I would say they are more similar than they are different. And the main similarities are that they both have essentially the same definition of laid off employees to whom the rights of recall would apply, although there's a way in which the local ordinance expands who are deemed qualified employees, and I'll talk about that. The applicability of both the state law and the ordinance that's been provided to the council is to hotels of 50 or more guest rooms, so larger hotels. The employee notice and record keeping requirements are very similar, although the notice period is longer in the local ordinance, as I'll talk about, and the record keeping requirements are actually more expansive under the state law. Both SB 93 and the local ordinance would defer to employment contracts that provide equal or greater benefits, and neither preempt greater protections that may be provided by other regulations or by contract. So that's what they have in common. And now I'm going to talk a little bit about the differences, and council members, feel free to interrupt me if you have questions that you want me to address right then. SB 93 differs from our local ordinance primarily in its scope of applicability and its remedies. The scope of applicability of SB 93 is actually broader than our local ordinance in the sense that it would apply to expressly to types of workers and businesses that our local ordinance does not address. And that includes airports, airport hospitality operations, airport service providers, event centers, and private clubs. As to enforcement, SB 93 gives the Division of Labor Standards Enforcement exclusive enforcement jurisdiction regarding violations. So under SB 93, aggrieved employees may file complaints with the Division of Labor Standards Enforcement and may be awarded a range of remedies as provided in the law. Those include reinstatement, front and back pay, award of the employee's average rate of pay, the most recent rate of pay a newly hired employee who was hired in violation of SB 93 received, value of benefits the employee should have received. Those are some of the awards that can be given under SB 93. In addition, it provides for civil penalties of $100 per employee whose rights were violated, plus $500 per employee per day of violation, as well as for injunctive relief that the Labor Commissioner can seek from the court. As I noted, SB 93 permits local ordinances that provide greater recall protections than it does, so it's not preemptive with respect to that, but presumably is preemptive of local regulations that provide less protection. So Chapter 8.40, the draft ordinance to enact that is in your package as this item tonight. It's narrower than SB 93 in that it doesn't explicitly cover those airport-related businesses, event centers, and private clubs I mentioned. Neither did the sample that the North Bay Business Council provided us. We checked very closely to it. And by the way, I wanted to mention that I think that the Labor Council did a nice job of, in their first draft, adapting their model to Petaluma's code. We added a number of other features to do that, but it was a nice start for us. So I appreciate them doing that. So Chapter 8.40, the local ordinance would have a broader definition of qualified employees entitled to recall. It would include employees who, with the same training required for new employees, would be qualified for the position being offered. The state law just provides for those that are already qualified without that kind of training. Chapter 8.40 would have a slightly longer period of required notice to laid off employees and a slightly longer time during which they could choose to accept or decline a newly offered position. The local ordinance provides 10 days, SB 93 gives 5 days. Chapter 8.40, the local ordinance requires covered employers to retain records regarding laid off employees for 2 years. State law requires an additional 3 years. State law also expands the records that need to be retained beyond the local law. The local ordinance provides that it may be repealed by council resolution. That's something we often do for urgency regulations that may not be intended to have permanent effect so that they can be repealed easily. SB 93 takes a different approach. It has a sunset date, so it would expire it will expire December 31st, 2024. And again, focusing on the main difference between the two, which is the remedies, the sole enforcement mechanism in Chapter 8.40, the local ordinance, as in the sample the North Bay Labor Council provided us, is a private civil cause of action brought in the Superior Court. In Chapter 8.40, either the employee or their agent or the city may bring an action on their behalf, and the court may award reinstatement, back pay, benefits, other equitable relief, compensatory and punitive damages in certain cases, treble damages in the case of retaliation, and attorney's fees. The state law does not provide for a private cause of action. That's really the main difference between the two. And I guess the last thing I'll mention is that in my remarks, and then be happy to answer council questions, SB 93 is silent on retention. Retention is the right that employees have to keep their positions for a specified period in the law, notwithstanding that the ownership of their employer may have changed. So SB 93 doesn't address that. If the council still wishes to, as it has indicated it would like to, we'll have to come forward to the council with an ordinance to do that, as I've committed to doing by the May 3rd meeting. I do intend to try to check to see if the state legislature is planning another similar bill, so that we can take that into account. And I don't have that information as of yet. So that concludes my my initial remarks, and I will be happy to answer any questions that the council has. And I suspect there'll be some public comment, including, I believe, from a representative of the North Bay Labor Council. Thank you.
Thank you. And any action that we take today on this item really doesn't affect the right to retention. That is something we are going to address separately from this on the May 3rd meeting.
That's correct, Madam Mayor. Neither Chapter 8.40 as presented nor SB 93 address retention.
Okay, so I'm not seeing any hands up or for questions from people on the council. So I'm going to ask our city clerk if she's received anything from the public on this item, and then go to our moderator.
We did. We received 4 public comments for this, and they're all posted on the website.
Thank you very much. And with that, we will open public comment, and I will ask our moderator, Patrick Carter, to go ahead with that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members of the public wishing to speak on this item, please raise your hand in Zoom and you'll be called on in turn. We have a number of hands raised. First speaker is Aaron Chmielewski, followed by Zaira. Aaron, you may unmute yourself and begin your comments.
Good evening, Aaron Chmielewski, North Bay Organizing Project Petaluma Chair. In addition to the submitted comment that I had supporting the adopting of the ordinance right to recall for our own Petaluma one, I did want to also just strongly encourage that we continue to have our own draft because it is stronger and it's like anything else. Like, you can have the framework for something, but then you can customize it to our town. And then I think that would be great. And I look forward to North Bay Jobs being able to speak to this more. And thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments, Aaron. Next speaker is Zaira, followed by Ty Hudson. Zaira, you may unmute yourself and begin your comments.
Thanks, Patrick, and good evening, everyone. I too am in support in what Aaron had brought up, but I also wanted to take it a step further and remind our city and businesses of the following. Given to the recent events that have been occurring in different pockets of Sonoma County, I want to make sure that our businesses as well are updated on sexual harassment policies and trainings. And also, for those of you, the Crown Act is a state federal law. The Crown, which is Create a Respectful and Open Workplace for Natural Hair Act, SB 188, is a California law which prohibits discrimination based on hairstyle and hair texture by extending protection for both categories under the FEHA and California Education Code.
Zaira,
Yes.
This is the mayor. Sorry to interrupt you, but this is only for comments on this issue.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, it's all intersection, but I think businesses as well as the hotel, it intertwines that it needs equity training. But moving on to my comment, I'll say, owners and corporate will argue that it's necessary. It isn't necessary to pass local ordinance. So the statewide bill SB 93 explicitly allows cities to establish stronger recall rights than what the state bill provides. So you can help prevent this by passing the proposed right to recall and worker retention ordinance. This is one of the most important ways you can help our community recover from the pandemic. So I hope that you pass our ordinance and give hotel workers some hope, because as a taxpayer, I want my money to go into businesses who treat all human beings with dignity and respect. And that also includes having protections our workers can trust, a system they can trust, a system that is accessible to file complaint and report injustices, a system that works for them, not greed. So Petaluma can set the tone that any violation on basic human rights will not stand in our community. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Zaira. Next speaker is Ty Hudson, followed by Michael Trillo. Ty, you may unmute yourself and begin your comments.
Good evening, Mayor Barrett and members of the City Council. My name is Ty Hudson with Unite Here, Local 2850, the Hotel Workers Union in the North Bay and the East Bay. And I want to thank you all for considering this this ordinance, this really important ordinance, and for pushing to expedite it. And I also want to thank the city attorney and city manager for their work on it. This is a really crucial lifeline for workers in the hospitality industry who have been among the hardest hit by the mass layoffs due to the pandemic. And as we all see the light at the end of the tunnel with the vaccine rolling out, there are still a lot of people out there not sure whether they'll be able to go back to normal, go back to their pre-pandemic jobs. I do want to address some of the differences between this ordinance and the state law, and the city attorney did spell them out. But as you have heard from a previous commenter, the SB 93 explicitly does not preempt local ordinances that would provide stronger protections. And we believe that that's what this ordinance would do. SB 93 is a very welcome and important statewide standard, but we think it's many local ordinances have gone further, and we think Petaluma can and should do the same. One of the key pieces is that the city attorney did mention is that the local ordinance would provide recall rights to more laid off workers in the event that the mix of jobs offered by the employer after the pandemic differs from the mix of jobs that existed before the pandemic due to operational changes, for example, and also in case some jobs don't come back for a few years. So it would provide recall opportunities for more of the laid off workers. And I believe Marty Bennett has his hands raised and wanted to cede his time to me. Is that possible, as I see my time is running out?
I believe that we allow someone to cede up to 3 minutes. Yes, that is our council rule. If Marty Bennett, I do see his hand up. So if he wants to cede his time for you, he can. I guess we should ask him rather than just assume. So maybe our moderator could do that.
Marty, can you unmute yourself and let us know if you're willing to cede your time?
Hi, this is Marty Bennett, and yes, I'm willing to cede my time.
Thank you very much, Marty.
Thank you.
All right. Well, I was going to stake my credibility on asking you to take my word for it, but I'm glad you got Marty to say it himself. Okay, so the broader recall right, as I was saying, is very, very important, and that is going to be really important. It's not just about whether or not someone has training; it's whether or not there is a different set of jobs available than the precise type of jobs that were that were available prior to the layoff. Some of the hotels or some of the employers may have operational changes, whereas they used to have, for example, servers and bussers in their restaurant, they're only going to have servers and runners instead, for example. And so making sure that people who could do the job, even if it's not exactly the same job that existed before, are able to be recalled. There is also a provision in the local ordinance that would make sure that more laid off workers are aware of their recall rights. As you know, this ordinance does not just apply to union members; it applies to union and non-union workers alike. There may be, with non-union workers, there may be no organization that is actively in contact with them to inform them of their rights. Especially now that they've already been laid off, and it's not like anybody can go to the hotel and talk to them. So the local ordinance in section 8.40 040 would require the employers to give them notice of their rights under the new ordinance once the ordinance goes into effect. And then finally, the city attorney did talk about the difference in the remedies. Having the Department of Labor Standards Enforcement on the state level is a good thing, but we think that having a civil right of private civil action is going to do more to really encourage employers to comply with the law and empower workers, if necessary, to enforce it. So I'm happy to answer any questions if there are any. But again, I really applaud the city council for taking this item up. I think it's going to give a lot of people some hope that they will be able to go back to work, and hopefully sooner rather than later, as we've seen the economy starting to open up again. So thank you, and I hope you will pass the ordinance tonight.
Thank you, Ty. The next speaker is Michael Trillo, followed by Maddie Hirschfield. Michael, you may unmute yourself and begin your comments.
Hello, thank you. Thank you for letting me speak. My name is Michael Trillo. I'm the general manager of the Sheridan here in Petaluma. And I would just like to, in addition to the letter that we sent and is part of public record, just hit a couple of points here for the council to respectfully consider when thinking about this. So the concern in just a general area is that the city council hasn't taken the time to really focus in on the hotels and how this ordinance may impact the hotels that operate and are actively bringing visitors and revenue into the city of Petaluma. A concern is that the ordinance is limited in scope to the hotel industry. It doesn't seem to cover all Petaluma businesses, and I'm just curious why the hotel industry would be being singled out. Does the city council, what does the city council consider a laid off worker? Because if in fact the employee turned down or refused returning to work after being laid off in 2020, would you still consider that a laid off worker because they obviously have turned down a job? And that's mixed in with my other general comments, and now a little bit more specifically to the Sheridan itself. The city council should consider that they may not have been given the complete picture or the truth behind this request and why the union may be asking the city council to intervene. This is an active matter that's being discussed between the hotel and its union. And the hotel and the union do have a collective bargaining agreement. And in fact, many of the workers, laid off workers that the city council does or may think that they're protecting actually turned down their jobs last year when the hotel started to expand operations. They were given the opportunity to come back to work. Many of them said no, refusing to come back to work. We do feel that the city council should consider that we've done everything in our power. We've done our due diligence. We follow the collective bargaining agreement to a T. We have open positions. We have former union employees, former employees who would be considered qualified for those positions, yet none of them applied. We have 11 open positions at our hotel right now, and I know that the Hampton Inn general manager had sent an email. He has 9, so I'm just curious who we're actually protecting.
Thank you for your comments, Michael. I had to cut you off. You're right at the 3-minute mark. Next speaker is Maddie Hirschfield, followed by Sierra Downey. Maddie, you may unmute yourself and begin your comments.
Hi, good evening. This is Maddie Hirschfield. I'm the political director of the North Bay Labor Council. Ty Hudson with Unite here at 2850 is an affiliate of ours. And I just wanted to say that we do very much support this this ordinance being passed. I just wanted to address why this ordinance singles out the hospitality industry. It's because Ty had mentioned they were hit harder than anyone else. When the pandemic first hit, hotel workers were 95% laid off. So I think as things began to open up, they went up to 75, but no one has been hit that hard. And these are low-paying jobs, often people of color. So that's why it's targeted to this group. I don't believe that if someone is offered a job back, that they are still considered a laid-off worker. Some people had to turn down the offer to come back because they were themselves sick. That should not be held against them. So there are reasons for this, and there are good answers to what the previous speaker said. But it's very, very important to target this particular working group of people. They were so badly hit, and we need to, as Ty said, give them a light at the end of the tunnel. So the North Bay Labor Council is fully behind this ordinance and not passing it up because state legislation was passed. Thank you.
Thank you, Maddie. The next speaker is Sierra Downey, followed by Max Bell Alper. Sierra, you may unmute yourself and begin your comments.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. My name is Sierra Downey, and I'm with the Sunrise Movement Sonoma County Hub, working to strengthen climate justice and resilience here in our community. And I just want to add my voice and our organization's support to urging you to pass this urgency ordinance, protecting hospitality workers' job security and establishing a right of recall. As has been discussed tonight, these mass layoffs triggered by the COVID pandemic have really just shaken our hospitality industry in our county to its core. And this has disproportionately impacted women and people of color. And with so many of these hospitality workers currently left just absolutely high and dry without a guarantee that they will get their old jobs back, even as business returns, I mean, our community really is facing a crisis. And part of building resilience as a community is really ensuring that the most impacted workers, and these are often the same folks who are disproportionately affected by climate crises, right? It's making sure that they have the stability and the safety that they need, especially as we continue through these next stages of the pandemic and early stages of vaccination. So I want to ask you to please protect these workers, protect our neighbors. I mean, these are the folks who are the Petaluma community, right? So I'm asking to please protect them tonight by passing this right to recall ordinance. And as we've heard, yes, we do have the statewide recall law, SB 93, which was passed last Friday, and it explicitly allows cities to establish these stronger recall rights ordinances. And so I really do believe that this makes Petaluma's recall ordinance just all that much more important and imperative to pass tonight. So thank you so much for your time and for taking our public comment on this.
Thank you, Sierra. Next speaker is Max Bell Alper, followed by Noah. Max, you may unmute yourself and begin your comments.
Good evening, Council. My name is Max Bell Alper. I'm the Executive Director of North Bay Jobs with Justice. For folks who don't know, North Bay Jobs with Justice is a growing coalition of 26 community and labor organizations who are standing up for economic, racial, and climate justice in Sonoma County and throughout the North Bay. And you know, this is I'm so glad that we have this as an urgency resolution, ordinance today, because this is really, really urgent. One of the pieces of work that we do in North Bay Jobs with Justice is we talk to all low wage workers, especially unrepresented workers who may not be part of a union and may not have a voice. And what we're hearing throughout the hospitality industry is that people have been hit really, really hard. And as a number of speakers have mentioned, this is overwhelmingly women, people of color, and especially in the Latinx community. During COVID, the Latinx community in Sonoma County has been hit so much harder, so much, more disproportionately in terms of cases. And so this is a situation where Petaluma, we have an opportunity to do the right thing here, to take a stand that's going to be doing the right thing for workers, especially low-wage people of color who are working in our community. To answer the question in terms of why hotels, it goes without saying that hospitality industry, this is a driving engine of our economy here. And if we're going to recover, we need to make sure that at the core, that the people who do the work are recovering first, safely, and fairly. And some of the differences between SB 93 and the local ordinance may seem small. For example, having 10 days instead of 5 days, offering training to be able to do the other jobs, to have private action, or getting notification from your employer. They may seem small, but from the workers that we've talked to, this makes a huge difference in terms of people's actual experience of how they're going to be able to get these jobs. And perhaps most importantly, I think that today you all have an opportunity to be real leaders. These kind of ordinances have passed in Oakland as well as in Southern California, but this would be a big deal here in the North Bay. And this would send a message from the City Council to the residents and workers of Petaluma that you as a hospitality worker, you're safe here and you're included here and your voice matters and your security matters. And when you pass these kind of local ordinances, even when a statewide one exists, it gives a sense of confidence to working people to be able to actually make a difference in their lives and in their jobs. And so, please, I urge you to do this today. It is an urgent matter that will make a big difference in a lot of people's lives and in their families' lives. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Max. Next speaker is Noah, followed by Diane Kenny. So Noah, you may unmute yourself and begin your comments.
All right, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
All right. My name is Noah, and I am a tenant counselor and organizer with the Sonoma County Tenants Union. And I will speak this slowly so that any translators present can translate this multilingually. If there are no translators present, I urge the City Council to ask why that is. Your constituents deserve the strongest protections possible. And I will repeat, your constituents deserve the strongest protections possible. The industries which we are talking about, which line the coffers of the wealthiest in this county, exist because of working class labor, which is mostly women of color, which is queer and trans labor, which is exploited and underpaid. These are the same populations who the pandemic has hit hardest and disproportionately. If anyone listening has ever touted the notion of things supposedly going back to normal, quote unquote, as vaccines are more widely distributed, recognize that these are the workers who make that illusion of normal possible. Normal for them was already dire as wages stagnate while costs of living continue to climb and rents continue to skyrocket unabated. To speak to Zaira's point before being rudely cut off, these issues are intersectional. And I want to uplift what Zaira said about the other ordinances and the other ordinances statewide. And it's not up to us as white people to determine where those connections begin and end. Working class tenants need help to ensure there is food on their plates and a roof over their heads in the city that they work to make whole. Economic recovery is not about how much richer bosses or landowners get. It's about equity. And workers deserve to know that you care. Working class people deserve to know that their lives are valued for more than the extent that they can be ground down by exploitative industries which were built that way. This is what the workers of Petaluma deserve. I yield the rest of my time.
Thank you, Noah. Next speaker is Diane Kenny, followed by Alana S. Diane, you may unmute yourself and begin your comments.
Hello, my name is Diane Kenny. I moved to Petaluma in the year 2000, and I began working at the Sheraton in Petaluma in 2004. So I had been there for 16 and a half years. Last year, I received a letter in May of 2020 telling me that my job was terminated due to COVID. I was the senior banquet server there, and I did love my job. I planned on staying till I retired, and this was quite a shock to me. I'm a senior, and because of my age, I don't believe that I could get another job, secure a job like this at a hotel. And I feel like it has impacted my livelihood, losing my job. My coworkers had become like my second family to me. I just lost my husband last year in June, and more recently I lost my dog. And I just feel like I want my job security back when they start back up in the banquet department. I've worked hard there. Like I said, 16 and a half years. I've enjoyed the job, and I hope that the city council will help us and, will help us with this. And I do want to thank you for your time.
Thank you, Diane. Next speaker is Alana S., followed by Josh Simmons. Alana, you may unmute yourself and begin your comments.
Thank you so much for having me this evening, and thank you for putting this ordinance on this evening and taking a look at truly the needs of the backbone of Sonoma County. As a mother here in Petaluma, an immigrant to Sonoma County, I've been here 6 years. The moment I moved here, it was very apparent that the hospitality industry really was the livelihood and the backbone. It controls the economics of this community, and if we look at who holds that all together, their needs should be at the forefront. I believe Zyra spoke to it earlier, and so did Aaron, that we do need something like this in place to cater to our unique needs in this town. And we need to be listening to the humans that we've heard earlier who do represent these communities, these underserved and underheard communities. So thank you very much for your time this evening.
Thank you for your comments. Next speaker is Josh Simmons, followed by Carrie Fugit. Josh, you may unmute yourself and begin your comments.
Thank you, Patrick. Hello, City Council, city staff, members of the public. I am calling in to speak in support of the right to recall ordinance. There's really no nuance or detail I can speak to more effectively than the other commenters already have. But I do want to just voice my support as somebody who, in non-pandemic years, brings hundreds of visitors to Petaluma from all around the world every year for the event that we host at the Mystic called North Bay Python. It's very important to me that when we bring people to Petaluma, that we know that the results of that tourism and all of that visitation, flows positively to the people who are most disadvantaged, including the hospitality workers who have had a really rough go of it. So I just want to speak up in support of this with a slightly different hat on than I normally wear, but as a business person in the local community. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Josh. Next speaker is Carrie Fugit, followed by Emma Govea. Carrie, you may unmute yourself and begin your comments.
Thank you so much, Patrick. My name is Carrie Fugit. I'm an individual resident of the city of Petaluma, and I thank you for this opportunity for public comment. I too stand in support of passing a local right to recall and worker retention ordinance. Really glad that SB 93 passed, but kindly ask that you still adopt the local Petaluma ordinance because it's really important to provide more rights for laid off workers if, for example, the mix of jobs offered by employers changes. We also have to make sure that folks are aware of the recall rights. The bill doesn't really matter as much if people don't know it passed. So that's really important as well as encouraging compliance to make sure workers can enforce their recall rights. As I mentioned in my public comment initially for this back in February, I believe that the social fabric of our community is really important to maintain and invest in as we face increasing climate change devastation. The social bonds of our workers, neighbors, and friends is known as a tool for climate adaptation. These are connections. These connections are how we can help each other in times of distress. Our local established hotel workers are a very important part of our social fabric of the family of Petaluma, and their skilled experience, care, and work are a foundation of our entire economy. Ask that you stand with me in supporting them as hotels reopen to ensure these extra protections are provided. As a thank you for all of their years of service to our community. I thank you for support of adopting of a local Petaluma right to recall ordinance, and we'll see the remainder of my time.
Thank you, Carrie. Next speaker is Emma Govea, followed by Blake Hooper. Emma, you may unmute yourself and begin your comments.
Good evening. My name is Emma Govea. I'm a member of the Sunrise Movement, and I also stand in support of the right to recall and worker retention ordinances. I feel like people have made it very clear why it is you should support this bill. And I just want to encourage you to demonstrate that you support workers over over corporate interests, and that you have the opportunity to be brave for workers, and just that the community's eyes are on you. So, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Emma. Next speaker is Blake Hooper, followed by John Hanania. Blake, you may unmute yourself and begin your comments.
Good evening, city staff, council members, and our wonderful community. I would, like most of the previous comments, I would want to urge all of you to please support the ordinance and also include the expanded measures. I also emphatically wish to support NOAA's request for language translation and interpretation at these events and at these meetings. The Latinx community makes up a noticeable share of our service and hospitality sectors in this county and over 20% of our city's population. That is why for the May 3rd discussion, and frankly for every discussion to follow, I urge the city to invest in interpreter options for city council meetings, not just to hear the meetings, but also to be able to provide public comment for those meetings. The people most impacted by these ordinances should have the same rights as anyone else to be able to provide comment and feedback to this body. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments, Blake. Next speaker is John Hanania, followed by Eileen Morris. John, you may unmute yourself and begin your comments.
Well, some of you guys seem never to amaze me. First of all, I want to say thank you very much for some of the speakers like Zaira and Manny and some of the other people who spoke in support of this. I personally support it also. I don't agree with the person who spoke from the hotel, who's the manager. If someone was let go because of COVID, I think they need to have the right to go back to their job. And if they have a union bargaining table, they can go through the union bargaining table. I don't think the hotel should use this as an excuse to get rid of somebody who's been there for 16, 17 years because of their age, because that lady who spoke the truth. It's going to be very hard for her to find a job secure after she spent and served that place for 16 years. But one of the things I really want to touch on, if all the members in the community take a look at the charter of the city of Petaluma and look under the mayor, it's not inheritance, it's not entitlement for the mayor to be rude, disrespectful as she was to Zaira. And I'm glad I'm not the only one who caught that. But unfortunately, the mayor's wishy-washy. You know, there's times where she allowed people to yield time because she wanted the people to speak. She likes them or she have an agenda with them. Other times she will not because she doesn't like the person who's speaking. And shame on you for that. And I hope other people will call you on it. You need to do your job and be respectful to everybody. I think Zaira was onto something very important. She was very rudely cut off, and shame on you for that. And, you know, you guys brag about how you want to be the first city to eliminate gas station. You guys want to do things that you have passion for, but you don't care about what other people have passion for. These workers have a right. They work very hard. They're underpaid. They have family. Maybe the people who said no, they're not going back to work because their kids are out of school, or they have somebody at home sick and they need to take care of them because of the COVID. Have anybody thought of that? The manager from the hotel, you know, gets in there and sounds like Eric Danley, you know, and it's just like, I don't understand it. And again, what's it going to take for you guys to open your ears and listen and do your job and be respectful to the community? And I'm glad I'm talking to you this way, because I don't respect you when you don't respect the people.
Thank you for your comments, John. Next speaker is Eileen Morris, followed by Paloma. Eileen, you may unmute yourself and begin your comments.
Good evening, Mayor Barrett and members of the council. I raised my hand after hearing the general manager of the Sheraton speak. I really think that his comments just prove to me more than ever how important it is for this city to stand up for hospitality workers. I don't know how many people turned down a job, and you'll notice that he didn't say, but I feel like to have so little imagination or curiosity or compassion about why people in the middle of a pandemic might not be able to return to work is really telling. You know, I don't know if he asked himself about homeschooling and childcare, about illness, about pre-existing conditions. There are real risks to going back to work in that industry, and there are real barriers to going back to work in that industry. So to me, his response especially shows how important unions are, and I'm so happy that his employees are unionized, but they really showed me how important it is for this city to stand up for workers. And I really thank you for your track record in that regard. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eileen. The next speaker is Paloma, followed by Sandra Larson. Paloma, you may unmute yourself and begin your comments.
Hello, thanks so much for taking the time to let me comment. I just want to say that managers of hotels are going to be fine. The hotels are going to be fine, but the workers won't. Hospitality workers are more likely to be disadvantaged, and I would really like to see the City Council fight for them. I appreciate you considering this, and I hope that you will support people who need it the most. I'd like to cede the remainder of my time to Zaira.
This is the mayor again, and I'm just going to jump in down here. We only cede time to someone when that person is actually talking. It's a little difficult here when we're doing it remotely, but because Zaira has spoken already, she does not get another opportunity to speak. So if Paloma would like to continue speaking, she has, some amount of time left, and that's possible. But we do not let people speak twice on the same item. They can submit any additional comments they want to make for the record by email or any other way they choose to do that. So thank you.
Okay, then I'd like to request the remainder of my time.
You can go ahead and continue.
Okay, great, thank you. So I'd like to extend what I had to say because I really think that we need to support people who aren't necessarily here at this council, probably because there isn't a lot of translation available. They're not able to participate as fully as we would like. So honestly, I think that we need to support them in this time. I am not a hospitality worker, but I feel like I should use my voice and the time that I have remaining that I can't cede to anybody else to speak for them. These people need our support, and we have the opportunity to do something here. These people already worked at these places. They already know how to do these jobs. The hotel workers don't need to pay the cost of retraining these employees. They already know all the process. The only reason they wouldn't want to hire back previous employees is if they, number one, have a bad track record, which, they weren't fired for that, so that doesn't make any sense. And number two is if they're trying to age them out of the system, either from being older or because they've moved up enough in their career that they have a higher pay than an entry-level worker. And I don't think either of those are respectable ways to treat an employee, especially one that has spent so many years dedicating their life to supporting a business like this. We hear people talk all the time about how businesses are families. This business, we run it like a family. We support each other like a family. But then when the time gets tough and it costs them a dime, they cut those people out. There's no protections for supporting those people. And we have the opportunity to make those people walk what they say that they're going to do. We have the opportunity to hold them to task, make them support their employees, make them act like an actual family, retain the workers that they've spent so much time training and supporting in their career. And I think that this is incredibly important. So thank you so much for considering this. I also would really highly recommend that with future issues where we have something that might sort of disproportionately affect people who don't speak English as their first language, we would have a live interpreter here to be able to help make sure that their comments can be read to the council or interpreted for the council so that they can hear directly from those people. So I would love it if the council would consider that for future action items that would disproportionately affect people who don't speak English as a first language. I mean, it'd be great if it was all the time, but especially for these where we need to hear them the most. So thank you so much. I really appreciate you taking the time to listen to my opinion.
Thank you, Paloma. The next speaker is Sandra Larson. Sandra, you may unmute yourself and begin your comments.
Hello. Thank you to Mayor Barrett and the City Council for allowing me to speak. My name is Sandra Larson. I have had the great pleasure of living in Petaluma for 36 years now. I've raised my family here, and I also serve as president of the Petaluma Federation of Teachers. We all know the impact COVID had on our town, on our state, and on our world. It's affected every member of the community, but it's been disproportionately impacted women and people of color and people in lower paying jobs. And I worry about it's going to be harder for those people to get over the effects of COVID if they don't have their jobs. So we're asking you to please support this proposed right to recall and worker retention ordinance. We need to make sure vaccinations are here. Things are going to start opening up, and we need to make sure that workers get their jobs back. I believe our town should be respectful of the workers, and we owe them their job. So thank you for listening.
Thank you, Sandra. And Madam Mayor, that's the last hand we have raised, so I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you very much, Patrick. And with that, we'll close public comment on this item and bring it back to the council for questions, comments, and a vote. So I see Council Member Fisher.
I don't have any questions. I do want to thank all the members of the community for your great words. I'm in agreement with all of them. And I also want to express to John Hanania that your comments are really hurtful. You know, I'm sitting up here as a volunteer in this community, and when I hear the words that you've been saying tonight, they are incredibly disrespectful, and they do really hurt. And I'll leave it at that. So 100% supportive. I would even make the motion if there were time. Thank you.
You have the right to make the motion.
I will make the motion to approve this item. Yeah, I think it's really incredibly important that we do have a chapter in our code to protect our workers for all the reasons that were mentioned. That's all.
Thank you. And yes, and Council Member Posake, followed by Council Member McDonald.
I have little to add to everything our citizens said tonight. I thank them again for coming, and I personally think the most important aspect of our version is that it does provide the recall rights to workers who have had their job titles changed or other things like that, or who have been called and felt to have refused a job when they were ill or in quarantine or having to do childcare. So I would also second Council Member Fisher's motion if it's time for that as well.
It is. Thank you very much. Council Member McDonald, followed by the Vice Mayor, and then Council Member Healy.
Thank you very much. I do think the ordinance is important, and certainly want to thank everyone for speaking. The council needs to hear the voices in the community. But also, I think that, you know, We need to recognize that the speakers tonight, their voices are here at a platform where they can be heard by a broader community. And it's important that that voice not just reach the council, but reach a broader audience. And so I'm happy that the council has this issue in front of it and that this platform's there so that we can have this conversations and in the community about the important things in the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I certainly support this. This is where equity, the rubber meets the road. So I'm really excited that we showed the urgency to get it forward. I applaud our city manager, our city attorney for making this a priority and getting this back, getting this in front of us. And I really hope that workers can get back to work and that our hotels rebound. The reason why I'm supporting this is I really haven't heard a reason not to support it. I know there's a state law, but I don't see a reason why we wouldn't have, make our worker protections as strong as they can be, because these are people and we can do it. So for that reason, I'm absolutely 100% in support of this.
Thank you. And Councilmember Healy.
Thank you. So I'm comfortable moving forward with both the introduction of the ordinance and then separately the urgency ordinance for a lot of the same reasons that have been stated. I did read carefully the letters that were submitted by both Mr. Trillo and Mr. Locke. And then I went and reread the actual ordinance in light of their concerns. And I think the ordinance is very carefully and narrowly crafted to address what needs to be addressed. And it's not burdensome at all on businesses. And I would just also comment that, with respect to some employees who may have declined to come back previously, I couldn't blame them for not wanting to come back before vaccines were readily available. They may have had family or housing situations or schooling situations that made it uncomfortable for them to come back, and I don't think they should be penalized for that. And then finally, I just wanted to echo Councilmember Fisher's comments. I believe in Mayor Barrett's 2 years plus running our meetings. She has been fair and even-handed in using our 3-minute session of time rule. And I think people who think she hasn't been fair and unbiased in that don't understand how the rule works. So I would not like to hear further comments along those lines going forward. And then I'm just assuming that the motion encompassed both the introduction and the urgency ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you. I will ask the maker of the motion if that was her intention. Yes, she's nodding, and the seconder was. Yes, thank you. Well, I just want to say that it's very clear that this is something that this council supports wholeheartedly, those of us who can vote on this issue. And it's something that we actually asked our council and our city attorney to work on. So I want to thank our staff, and I want to thank our attorney, who I know until very recently was working with 2/3 of his staff rather than a full complement. And I really would like, to say thank you very much for getting this done, and I look forward to seeing the next part of it on May 3rd. So with that, I'll ask our city clerk for a roll call vote.
Barnacle?
Yes.
Barrett?
Yes.
Fisher?
Yes.
Healy?
Yes.
McDonald?
Yes.
Posake?
Yes.
That's unanimous, with King recusing from this item.
Thank you very much. And with that, we're going to go to public hearings. And we have 2 items on the public hearing, so we will actually wait for Councilmember King to be invited back. There he is. Okay, good to see you, Dave. Okay, so now we are on to public hearing item 5A, public hearing to receive comments on the 2021-2022 proposed annual action plan and adoption of a resolution approving the Community Development Block Grant Annual Action Plan and authorizing the city manager to sign all documents required by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And we'll have our housing director, Karen Shimizu, speak today.
Great, thank you. I have a PowerPoint presentation I'm just going to bring up here. Okay, I think we're set to go. Good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. This evening we will be talking about the CDBG Annual Action Plan and having a public hearing. And as part of that public hearing, I'll be providing a program timeline of the application process, available funding and eligible activities, a mid-year update of our current 2021 CDBG programs, the proposed 21-22 program funding, and there'll be time for questions and comments from staff and community partners. To start with, we have a public notice requirement, and what we do is we post a public notice in English and Spanish in the Argus Courier. We email invitations to community organizations, post this on the city website to encourage public participation, and we also send it out in email updates. The technical assistance meeting was held on February 11th. And we had about 7 or 8 different community organizations participate. The funding application deadline was March 5th. And with that, after we received all the applications, staff reviewed them and we drafted the annual action plan with proposed uses for the 21-22 program year. When that plan was completed, we posted it on the website. I do want to note that we initially posted the draft plan on March 18th, and we posted a revised plan with changes to proposed activities and updated data that was distributed made available last week with the staff report and agenda item. This evening, we're having the City Council public hearing. I did also want to note that in the draft plan, after this evening's hearing, we will be incorporating in the public comments that we received. From there, we submit the plan to HUD for review and approval. The funding we have this year is $355,206. The uses are eligible activities. It can be used for acquisition of real property, relocation and demolition, rehabilitation of residential and non-residential structures, public facilities and improvement, that's water and sewer facilities and ADA improvements. We can also fund public services. There is a public service cap where we can only use 15% of the total program funding. It can be used for energy conservation, renewable energy resources, and assist businesses with economic development opportunities and jobs. This is something I felt inclined we've had some additional funding that came in through the CDBG program for COVID, but I also wanted to highlight who we're really serving in the community. So what this is a mid-year update. This is focused on our current year programs. So they started July 1, 2020, and they will run through June 30th of 2021. The key items I wanted to highlight on here is what I've done is I've taken a look at the Petaluma demographics here and the different percentages of area median incomes. And just to kind of put everybody on the same page, the area median incomes for family of 4, as you can see, for 30% is $34,000 a year, 50% $56,000, and up to 80% is $90,000 a year. The item I really wanted to emphasize here is if you take a look at all our different services that we have and you take a look at the numbers are being served, the majority of our CDBG funding is really being invested in serving our community members that have 30% or below of area median income. So the majority of programs are serving extremely low income individuals. The other aspect I wanted to highlight, we've been having a lot of conversations about diversity within our community. I have to look at some notes here. So with this, what I did is I broke down the demographics of our community, white, and my apologies, there are several different demographics that are and ethnicities that are represented, but it would have been a really long chart for the purposes of this. I reflected the Hispanic and other members of our community. The actual breakdown of that is 15.7% are Latino, Hispanic, 3.4% are Asian Pacific Islander, 1.2% are Black, and 0.03% is Native American and Eskimo, and another 2.6 is noted as other. So that's where the total of the 22.5% breakdown comes. So if you take a look at this, if you take a look at the total community averages, it has all the funding listed here, but it also reflects the percentage of people in our community and their ethnicities and who's really being served. So in taking a look at this larger slice here, 22.5% of our community members, and then 77.5 are white. And as you look at the different, the chart on the bottom and take a look at the different organizations, you can see those that are kind of meeting our average, which is 22.5%, and the 77.5. So you can see how that's being reflected here. I think a couple organizations I would highlight is the Boys and Girls Club. Seems to be doing a great job at representing the community, as all the other ones. I thought it would be great just to show you some of the work in action. So here we have a picture of the volunteers for the Petaluma People Services Meals Program. And we also have a picture of one of the Rebuilding Together clients who had her stairs removed and had a lift put in to help her with access and mobility. But let's take a look forward at what we're talking about tonight. We're talking about our proposed activities coming up in the next year. So starting July 1st, 21 and going through June 30th of 22. And here what I've done is I've listed out the application amount for the different organization. You can see the total funding request would have been almost $390,000. The next row reflects the proposed funding or the funding level that staff is proposing. And then I thought it would be interesting to take a look at total program funding. Another, aspect that I'm not sure if we presented that before, but taking a look at the percentage of funding for the whole program that the city is providing. So for PPSC, the city is providing 15% of their total program funding. Rebuilding Together, 46%, PEP Housing, 52%. And then for administration, I do want to make a note here that staff is recommending, while the city is eligible to allocate $71,000 in funding to cover administration costs, staff is recommending the city only allocate $32,000, which is 9% of the total available, which actually allowed the city to put another $40,000 into program services. So staff is really looking at making sure the funding is being used wisely, that we're leveraging our local funding and moving that forward. The last slide, my apologies, I can't see it here on the screen. The last slide has to do with climate framework. I wanted to just note that while we didn't require it in this current year that we're in funding, that we did ask the question on our applications moving forward into this next program year. So all of our organizations have modified their program. They've taken a look at the city's climate framework, and they've made modifications, or they continue to make improvements for program operations that will support the climate framework. With that, before you, we can have comments, questions, and recommendations to conduct the public hearing and consider the resolution authorizing the 21-22 annual action plan, recommended allocation of funding, to submit the 21-22 annual action plan to HUD for approval, and authorize the city manager to sign all documents. And available this evening, there are representatives from all of the nonprofit organizations. We have Elise Hempel, Jim Whalen, and Jane Hamilton, and staff to answer any of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. And with that, I do not see any questions from, oh, yes, I do. Councilmember Fisher.
Well, it actually is more comments, so I guess I should wait.
More questions and comments. No.
So my comment is rebuilding together, and Jane Hamilton, and the things are moving so quickly in terms of going to all electric and everything that we can do in homes in order to make them more climate friendly. And I just wanted to raise that awareness. And if we can provide any resources or information about the programs that you're doing and the work that you're doing in people's homes, and if there's any opportunity to be more climate forward, I guess. That was a comment.
Okay, thank you. You don't have to respond, Jane, but if you do, just let us know. Okay, I don't see any other hands up from council members, so I will ask our city clerk if we've received any email or letters on this item.
We did, Madam Mayor, one, and it's posted online.
Thank you very much. So then I will ask our moderator if we'll open public comment, see if there's anyone from the public who would like to comment on this item.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Members of the public wishing to provide public comments for the public hearing item before us now, please raise your hand in Zoom and you'll be called on in turn. I see a hand raised, so I will share my screen. And Ben Peters, you may unmute yourself and begin your comments.
Yeah, hi everyone. So hopefully you all had the opportunity to read my written comments as submitted. Hopefully some of those questions do get asked and some of the improvements do get made. So I don't need to repeat myself on some of the technical aspects of the draft report. I do appreciate the demographic information. I wish that would have been included in our consolidated annual plan that was submitted to HUD, that we're not serving only old white people in our community. So let's double down on that commitment, both in our written documents that are shared with state and federal agencies and within our actual actions. So let's really make those commitments. And, good comments on the decarbonization efforts. It's interesting that some projects seem to have been swapped out in favor of not having to deal with that issue. So we don't need to confront those publicly, but I think we all know what we're talking about when we need to decarbonize our buildings. And we need to make those commitments clear. So again, you have my written comments. Those are in the public testimony. I recognize verbal testimony per Mr. Danley doesn't make it into the official HUD reports. At least they haven't so far. So you have those written comments. Thanks.
Thank you for your comments, Ben. I see no other hands raised from our attendees, so I'm going to stop sharing my screen and turn it back to you, Mayor.
Thank you. And with that, we'll close public comment and bring it back to the council. Karen, did I see your hand? Did you want to say something?
I have some comments, but I'll wait until the rest of the council
okay.
comments. I just wanted to address some of the comments so far.
Okay, fine. Thank you. And so with that, I will ask Councilmember King. He has his hand up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. First of all, I will move the staff recommendation. And secondly, I'd like to thank PPSC, Rebuilding Together, and PEP for their fine work in our community and their service to a lot of people in need. These are the kinds of things that city government attempts to do, as well as state and county and the federal government, but all three of those organizations and their volunteers and their leaders are on the ground doing great work. So thank you very much. And I don't really have any questions and no comments other than moving the item.
Okay, thank you. And so the Vice Mayor, followed by Councilmember Posake and Councilmember Healy.
Yep. Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I'll echo the comments from Councilmember King about just appreciating the work that you do in the community and serving citizens who need it, or the residents who need it. My comments are going to go into the climate stuff, and that's that if we're replacing HVAC systems or water heaters and we replace them with gas, we're knowingly not going to hit our 2030 targets. And I know it just feels like it's, one little thing after another, but that's what, that's the vigilance that it takes to actually get there. So I really, I just want to not see gas installed. And so not to see gas replaced with these. If that means we serve a few less residents, that's what it takes. And I think that these are public dollars. These are our opportunity to build the market for electric, to figure out what the problems are with permitting, to the mayor's point, that we have these problems, and expecting a contractor working with a homeowner to just work through these things, that it's just not it's not going to happen. But working with public dollars and being able to make these test cases of how we need to evolve our permitting systems and process, that's where this can happen. So I 100% support the organizations who are doing this work, and I hope that we can treat these publicly funded projects as opportunities to figure out how to make it work for the private sector. And thank you. I'll cool it with that.
Thank you. Councilmember Posake.
Thank you, Mayor Barrett. I would also like to congratulate the organizations involved. I'd like to say that in relation, that in regards to the percent of the benefits going to people of color, I'd like to say that I appreciate seeing that number is higher than I remember it being a year ago. And I'd like to see us continue to strive for improvements in that area. And also that I'm in agreement with the Vice Mayor that we need to try to affect climate change in everything we touch. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Healy.
Thank you. I'll start by seconding Councilmember King's motion for all the same reasons. I actually had an email exchange earlier today with Jane Hamilton, and if she wants to chime in on this, I hope she can be indulged on that. But the gist of it was that with the work that rebuilding does, a lot of the homes that their elderly clientele have are poorly insulated older homes or mobile homes, and converting heating from natural gas to electric may be cost prohibitive in terms of actually heating their homes going forward without much more extensive retrofit work on insulation, which may not even be feasible in some cases. So you could, theoretically replace a gas heater in an older home or mobile home with an electric heater that they wouldn't then be able to afford to operate. So I don't think that's the road we want to go down. I would say that I think we could ask Rebuilding and the other nonprofits to look carefully at the possibility of retrofitting from natural gas to electricity on each project. But I don't think we're in a position to put a blanket requirement in place without understanding what that means. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember McDonald, and then I will go to Jane Hamilton.
I too wanted to thank all of the organizations involved here for their fabulous work. I think that kind of dedication, that kind of community investment is one of the things that makes Petaluma a fabulous place for all people. And I do think there's opportunity in what both the Vice Mayor and Councilman Healy are saying here. Certainly, the electric conversion comes with a higher utility rate today, but hopefully not over time. Over time, the electric rate will drop and the gas rate will rise significantly. So it's an investment. Alas, alack, we're asking investments from people with the least to invest. So I think it does come to the community to come up with that piece of the missing energy equation. And certainly a number of the homes are mobile home parks. There is still vacant land in the mobile home parks. We can talk to solar folks to utilize that piece of land to drive down energy costs for all on the property. So, I mean, there's innovative steps we need to take, and we're on the cusp of that. I think keeping in mind what our goal is for GHG reductions, and keeping in mind we want to help the folks who need the help, I think we can push those two together and come up with a great new program. Thanks.
Thank you. Jane Hamilton.
I just wanted to say that I've been in touch with John Crowley about the possibility of, or the practicality of installing solar for some of our clients. And you can't put solar on mobile homes, so I'm interested in Councilmember McDonald's suggestion of approaching the parks to do that with some of their vacant land. That's a great idea. But we do try, in every home that we're working on, to deal with energy efficiency, and when it's possible, we do insulate. I mean, we really keep an eye on that and on water usage and all of it. But we're kind of stuck on the gas appliances because that's the cheapest for people to operate. And if there's some sort of social equity program where people can make those conversions, and be able to afford the electricity until electricity prices come down or gas goes up, whichever, that would be great. So that's all.
Thank you. Vice Mayor, do you have your hand up again? Oh, okay. Vice Mayor Barnacle.
Yeah, this is the challenge that we have. And one of the problems in the building electrification space is, it's a problem. One of the people I work with says it really well. He says it's not a problem that building electrification created, but it's a problem we have to deal with. And that's that when solar came out, all the rich people got solar and they got all the highest incentives. And now, and that created this really, really bad taste in the mouth for all the equity people, equity focused organizations, and because, it left them out of the clean energy revolution. And we're about to see significant amounts of money from the Biden administration coming for building, retrofitting homes, retrofitting, we called for electrification. It was like music to my ears to not just hear energy efficiency, but actually hear electrification. But these are the struggles of what it's going to be like to try and get to carbon neutral. And it's just a reality. And I don't want elderly people to be stuck in cold houses. And we've got to figure out a way to do it. We've just got to figure out a way to do it because it's something that, and maybe I know Petaluma can't solve it on its own, but just installing more gas appliances and saying it's not going to work, eventually that cost is going to flip. And what's going to happen is electric is going to be cheaper and there's going to be a lot less gas going through the same fixed infrastructure. And all those low income people that we said couldn't afford it are going to be stuck on there paying $7 a therm just to heat water. And so I encourage us to keep thinking about this in the long game and not just in the here and now. And I know that it might be more expensive for them. But if there's something we need to do to subsidize bills or something, you know, I don't know what it is, but the answer is not going to be like, you do not want all of our low income residents being the last ones on the gas line when, you know, with all the wealthy people sitting there, you know, paying less for their electric appliances. So I'm just going to say that I agree with Councilmember Healy that we don't want a blanket requirement right now. But I would love to see case studies and examples come out of this. And maybe Sonoma Clean Power can, you know, would like to do something around that, but like we have to be looking at weatherization. We have to be looking at windows and things like that in addition to HVAC systems, because it's not just a box for box thing. You can't just get the efficiency out of it, as Jane knows, I'm sure. So it's just a really tough situation that we're in, but that's the reality of getting to carbon neutral and what it means to be a council who said we want to do it in less than 10 years.
Okay, thank you. And Councilmember King.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor. Jane, let's touch base. I'll talk to you about Sonoma Clean Power and whether there's any programs that rebuilding might be able to tap into. And if there aren't anything currently, I'll see about getting one underway in the next year or so.
That sounds great.
Thank you.
Okay, and before I go back to our staff on this, I will just tap back into the morning meeting I was at where electrification of water heaters is much more affordable and than space heating. And I'm not sure what kind of projects you have ahead of you, but if those are some of them, I do think that, you know, that is something that does definitely bring an advantage to your users. And, you know, I know the Vice Mayor was saying something about, you know, if it's more expensive, you know, well, that may be the way it is. We're dealing with people where more expensive isn't an option. That's why they get to be a part of this Rebuilding Together project. But it is our role here to get really creative, because this is where it does matter. And I think Councilmember McDonald's issue about well, let's see if we can get some photovoltaic positions out on some of those mobile home parks, means working with the owners of the mobile home park. And, you know, this is going to be the issue with multi-family dwelling units, that, you know, we have to talk with the landlords about making these improvements for their renters. So it's going to take, you know, a lot of work and a lot of outreach. And, you know, I'm happy to help you in any way I can, Jane. And I just heard our council member and representative to Sonoma Clean Power make that same offer in that area. So yeah, you really want to make this work in a way that has good long-term ramifications for the people you're helping now and for all of us in the future. Yeah.
Thank you. I'll be in touch.
Thank you. Okay, so I'm going to go back now to staff. Karen.
Hi. Thank you. Thank you for the public comments and for council's comments and feedback on this item. I just wanted to highlight and say that staff is committed to working with our organizations and helping them look for grants and other funding opportunities in order to really address, climate change practices. I also wanted to comment that what we're trying to do is bring forward more of the demographic information on who we're serving in our community, who's really benefiting from these programs versus people having to dig it out of a 50 to 250 page report. And I know Jane had the opportunity to speak to Rebuilding Together, but I do want to highlight that Petaluma People Services and PEP are also two organizations that are committed to addressing the city's climate change goals. PPSC has implemented quite a few changes in their program in regard to the type of serving utensils that they use, and they also have a green program where they take their food waste and it goes to local farms. So they're doing great work there. I also wanted to highlight the PEP did change their scope of work. They'd initially proposed to do the replacement of HVAC systems. I did have a conversation with them, and we did discuss that the city really wants to fund programs that are supporting our climate framework. So at this time, they changed their scope of work, but staff is committed in working with them to identify some funding that would allow them to make the modifications needed from going from gas to an electric HVAC system. So I just wanted to address a few public comments and council comments.
Thank you. Thank you. And Vice Mayor, did you have your hand up again? No. Okay. So with that,
I actually did, Mayor. Sorry. I'm sorry. I meant to hit on mute and I hit lower hand. So if we're if the PEP projects, if you're able to find more funding for the PEP projects, does that mean that they're going to do the HVAC system and electrify it, or what does that mean, I guess?
No, it does not mean we'll be making a change to the proposed scope of services for this round of CDBG funding.
Okay.
Perhaps to your question, we have a hand raised by Jim Wallen from PEP. Would you like to speak? Jim?
Yes, good evening, Madam Mayor and council members. To answer that question in regards to this round, yes, we did change after we discussed it with Karen, and we totally understand where we're going with this. The project River City, we actually changed that. You drive by that now. It's a beautiful project that has taken a long time. And at the last minute, we changed with very little gas in that. In future projects, we're going to be looking at the portfolio that we have, the 14 properties in Petaluma, looking at that conversion. But we also have those low-income seniors. So there does have to be some type of back-end solution to this issue. And it's something we are looking at.
Great, thank you. And then I noticed that the Mary Isaac Center and the Boys and Girls Club are part of the project too. It doesn't seem like the tenants are paying the rent at those facilities. If we're doing HVAC at those, or we're doing anything, I would hope that those are electric. Is that what's happening?
Well, the Mary Isaac Center has solar on it, so I'm not certain. That was the condition of it being built. So I'm not certain if that meets all their electrical needs, but I know that is in place. And the Boys and Girls Club, I don't know the answer to. Maybe staff or Ms. Shimizu knows.
I can address that. So the improvements that are currently happening at the Mary Isaac Center are being funded with a HEAP program. And I don't have the details of that project in front of me, but I'd be more than happy to forward the details and answer your question. In regard to the proposed CDBG funding, the improvements that Rebuilding Together will be working in partnership with the Boys and Girls Club, those would be taking into consideration water and electricity efficiencies. So
Okay, thank you.
you're welcome.
Okay, so now we have a motion by King and a second by Healy. So if there's no further discussion, we will have a roll call vote.
Article,
Yes.
Barrett,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Healy,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
and Posake.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and so now we're moving on to the public hearing on resolution. This is item 5B, resolution authorizing imposition and recordation of a lien against the property located at 621 Western Avenue, Petaluma, California, APN 008-024-029, 008-031-015, 008-032-009, and 008-033-001 for outstanding wastewater discharge permit violation fines. Before we start, Vice Mayor Barnacle would like to speak.
Yes, I'm going to be recusing myself from this item because I live so close to the property in question.
Okay, thank you. So with that, we'll say good evening to Vice Mayor because this is our last item.
So, all right, I'll tune out. Good night.
Good night. So, okay, so now we will go to Jordan Green on this.
Good evening, Mayor and Council Member. I'm Assistant City Attorney Jordan Green, and I'm virtually here with Jason Farnsworth, our Deputy Director of Environmental Services, in case you have any questions. As many of you know, the Petaluma Creamery is a manufacturer of cheese and other dairy products with offices and manufacturing facilities located at 621 Western Avenue in Petaluma. The creamery operations are subject to several rules and regulations, and it also requires a wastewater discharge permit to discharge wastewater into the city system. Over the last 5 years, the creamery has had challenges complying with the rules and regulations relating to its operations, as well as conditions of its wastewater permit. The creamery has made significant improvements over the last year, but still needs to improve its pretreatment system and pay the remainder of its debt to the city. To help the creamery achieve compliance while staying in operation, the city and the creamery entered into a consent order on March 11th, 2021. As a term of the order, the creamery consented to the city recording a lien for its outstanding fines. When the city submitted the staff report last week, the creamery owed $532,248.30 in permit violation fines. However, the creamery paid the city an additional $20,000 late last week. So the current balance is $512,248.30. The creamery does not have any other outstanding debt owed to the city. The recordation of the lien solely provides financial security for the city. For example, if the creamery is sold, then the city would be paid its outstanding debt before the owner would recover any profits. Recording a lien against the creamery's property does not enable the creamery to increase or expand its operations, and it still has to follow all of the rules and regulations. Therefore, we are recommending that you authorize the recordation of a lien against the creamery. Since the balance has decreased since we submitted the staff report, we recommend that the council adopt the proposed resolution imposing the lien, amended to reflect the current balance of $512,248.30. If you have any questions, Jason and I are both here to answer them.
Okay, thank you. Are there any questions from from council to staff at this point? I'm not seeing any. I actually have a couple questions. I know that as a director on the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, I know that the creamery is out of compliance with its dehydrator and which is not working at this time. And in order for it to start working with that, it has to come into compliance with the standards of the air district. What happens, if the, I guess I feel burned by the Creamery's behavior for almost a decade here of not paying its bills and promising to do the right thing, and then really having to be made to do the right thing. And I understand the lien gets us this money at the end of the business, before, so we're going to be made whole at some time. But, I'm still concerned about the Creamery as a bad actor in our community, and want to know what kind of watchdog, for lack of a better word, role is the city going to play with them. I think what I guess I'm recommending is that I would like the city to ask the air district to be notified at the time of any applications on the part of the Creamery to restart the dehydrator, or any other requests that they make of any regulatory body over them. I don't know of any other besides the air district, but perhaps the city does. But I just feel that I don't want to see ourselves slide into another situation with this company, because I think our city manager did such a heroic job bringing this company to where we are today. And I'm concerned about the long-term role of protecting the city's long-term interests. So I guess that's a really long-winded question, but there is a question buried in there.
Well, I could assure you that the city is, first, the city has a good relationship with the other agencies such as BACMed. I spoke to their attorney earlier today, and we are all communicating with each other. Additionally, the city's Ellis Creek team does do random sampling and the Creamery and inspections, and the Creamery consented to the city retaining a third party to conduct additional sampling as well as monitoring. So that way the city will be notified if there are permit violations or any other violations of the city's rules and regulations. And if that happens, we would take swift enforcement action.
Okay, but I guess I would, the other question buried in there, and I guess this is more to our city manager, is would we be willing to make a formal request to the air district to be sure that we're on the immediate notification of any action with the between the air district and the Creamery?
Absolutely, Mayor. A matter of fact, I believe that not only did Jordan reach out, but I also responded to somebody from BACMed, I think last week. So okay. We will have ongoing, let me just assure you that we are being very vigilant in our inspections, and in addition to the Ellis Creek staff, we also have our fire marshal who goes there regularly. And the Creamery knows that we are monitoring them.
Thank you very much. Okay, so I see a hand from Councilmember Healy.
Thank you. I'd start by just echoing the compliments to staff, city manager, city attorney's office, and public works for finally getting this onto a trajectory to a successful conclusion, even though it's not completely a final conclusion yet. My question was, do we know if this lien will be in first position, or are we behind other mortgages and liens out there that are outstanding? Thank you.
It is a priority judgment lien. I know there is one other lien by their bank, and I'm not sure if there's any other. We would need to double check that.
So we may not be in first position on this?
We would be towards the top. We may not be first, we may be second.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. So I don't see any other comments or questions from council members. So I will ask our city clerk if she's received any public comment on this item.
We have not received any public comment on this item.
Okay, so this is a public hearing, and we will ask our city moderator, Patrick Carter, to open public comment on this public hearing.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Any members of the public wishing to speak on this public hearing item, please raise your hand in Zoom now, and we will call on you in turn. I am looking toward the attendees. I do not see any hands raised, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. And with that, we will close public comment and bring it back to the council for action. And I see Councilmember King has his hand up.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I too would like to express my thanks to City Manager and City Attorney's Office for finally getting our long overdue wastewater fees collected. I'll move this item. I appreciate Councilmember Healy's question in the number of where you are on the lien, but you're nowhere unless you're on the line. So it's important to in the event that these fines are not paid for some reason, it's important to have some options to take. And this was a judgment lien, so I'll move the item, and hopefully this will communicate to the Creamery, which can be an important member of our community, that cooperation in paying bills and things like that are expected from the city of Petaluma. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councilmember Fisher, followed by Councilmember McDonald.
I was going to go ahead and second the motion and also express my gratitude to the city manager for the great work she's done on this. Thank you.
And Councilmember McDonald.
Good work to staff. Also was looking to second there, but yeah.
Okay, and Councilmember Healy.
Thank you. I just wanted to confirm with the maker of the motion that the motion is for the modified amount as indicated by the Assistant City Attorney.
Yes, $512,000 and the remaining numbers that she said about 10 minutes ago.
Thank you.
Correct.
48.3.
Thank you.
Okay, well, everybody's
At least we have a couple of accountants on the
paying attention here. That's good. Okay, so can we have a roll call vote, please?
Barrett,
Yes.
Fisher,
Yes.
Healy,
Yes.
King,
Yes.
McDonald,
Yes.
and Posake.
Yes.
That is unanimous with Vice Mayor Barnacle recusing.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you very much. And thank you again, staff. I mean, I know you've heard it, and Peggy in particular, you really did a fine job of showing that all businesses need to be treated equally. And you know, especially now when we're asking people to do so much in terms of saving and cutting back. So again, our hats are off to you. So thank you, and thanks everybody, and a good meeting this evening, and we'll see you on the 26th for our workshop. Thank you.
Not all. Thank you.